Amidst a wacky weekend of college basketball, a big old fat thank you to Kansas and UConn for delivering an epic top 5 matchup in the fog on Friday night to kick things off.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. We are your hosts. I'm Isaac Shade. This is Andy Patton, fresh off a plane from Las Vegas. This dude is halfway dead, but he's here and we're doing the deal. Hey, are you tired of a sport where an undefeated high major conference championship gets left out of a possible national championship? Come join us in college basketball world where the on-court results actually matter. Yes, that is college basketball. We want to thank you, especially you everydayers, for making Locked On College Basketball your first watch or listen to get your teams every day. Hey, come join our Discord, by the way, where we're talking college basketball all the time. The link is in the show notes. We'd love to have you there. This episode of Locked On College Basketball is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire, it feels like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Andy, as we record, there are only 14 undefeated teams left in the nation. We're just clipping them off one at a time. There is only one game left today. We're recording Sunday evening, and it's like third quarter of Sunday night football. There's one matchup left in D1 tonight, Andy. It's a hilarious matchup. 1-8 Central Arkansas is traveling to the islands to take on 5-1 Hawaii. I haven't looked up why this game is happening, if it's part of something, but I'm just laughing at the hilarity of Central Arkansas at Hawaii, a 1-8 team at a 5-1 team. Hey, congrats, you're on the islands at least.
Hey, and Central Arkansas is up right now as we're recording.
Are they really?
22, yeah, it's very close, but still.
Get out. Let's go. We got to keep updated on that one. I love it. This is one of my favorite things we've been doing on Monday shows. Andy, net rankings come out today for the first time. In fact, folks, by the time you're listening to or watching this, we might already know who is already going to get left out because they don't have any quad one wins this season. Bracketology is going. Let's get some quad talk. All right, Andy, we got to get to the marquee matchup of the weekend, which is all the way back on Friday night. Feels like eons ago at this point. But my word, what a way to kick off the weekend inside Fog Allen Fieldhouse as part of the Big East Big 12 battle or whatever it's called. Kansas wins 69-65 in a game that, quite frankly, UConn made more interesting than it probably should have been because Fog Allen Fieldhouse is worth approximately 12.5 points per game, and certainly UConn covered that. Andy, what were your takeaways from this marquee matchup of Friday night?
Is that 12.5? Is that a Ken Palm number? That's how much Fog Allen Fieldhouse's adjusted impact there.
It's not, but it should be, honestly.
Right.
We need an algorithm.
We'll call Ken up. We'll see if we can get him on there. Get him working on that. No, Isaac. My main takeaway from this is you kind of led into it perfectly. This game was at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. Like, how fun to have this kind of matchup be played in a true home environment, played on a Friday night. We love big time Friday night hoops matchups. It's always a blast. I'm sure many of you out there who are listening to the show watch this game, and the energy, the enthusiasm in the field house, this crowd was crazy. Like that makes it more fun. And like, you know, we've seen some great marquee neutral site games throughout the season, this season, and of course, you know, the MTEs and in previous seasons as well. But this is what makes college basketball so dang fun, having this game at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. And really what stood out to me in this game overall, Kansas, a phenomenal win for them. And I don't want to take a single thing away from them either, but UConn really didn't look like there's a lot of teams that lost, and we're going to get to them. We're going to talk about Purdue. We're going to talk about Duke. We're going to talk about Kentucky, Villanova, and Marquette. Gosh, the list goes on and on, but UConn didn't look bad in this game. They didn't win. There was things that were flaws that were showed in this game, but UConn played really well. Kansas had to shoot 64% from three at their home arena to win. It's rare that it's that hard for Kansas to win in Lawrence, and for this to be that tough of a game for UConn to survive while only playing, I think they only played 7 or 8 guys.
Seven UConn,
7
yeah.
guys.
Kansas.
They had the injury to Cam Spencer. Like this UConn team battled and played extremely well and had a ton of opportunities to win right down till the last possible second. And it's tough for them to not pull off this win, but this isn't the kind of game that makes me think any less of UConn, but it does give me even more confidence about Kansas. I was worried about them after, we had some struggles with them earlier in the week, and we were kind of wondering, hey, is this team going to be able to reach that threshold that we wanted for them, and going, and even at home, beating a team like UConn certainly puts you in that conversation. But these are two of the best teams in college basketball, and they absolutely look like it on Friday night.
Yeah, they 100% did. And to get, I can't remember if you just said this or not. My brain is all over the place, but like to get the two most recent national champions playing in a challenge, how fun is that? I'm glad you brought up the Spencer injury. It seemed like, he tweaked his ankle, and I was worried about him coming back in, but ends up playing 36 minutes. But here's the thing. He was clearly hobbled as he was going around. And you saw it in his game. This is a dude who's money from the free throw line. He was 1 of 3, 2 of 12 from the field. And so really curious. They got a huge matchup tomorrow, Tuesday, in Madison Square Garden in the Jimmy V Classic against North Carolina. So that'll be interesting to see. Tristan Newton, Andy, was the preeminent thing we got to talk about from this game. I mean, my word, not triple double level numbers like he had earlier in the week, but drops 31, 10 of 18 from the field, 6 of 9 from 3. And Andy, the threes he was having to take, I mean, they were contested, they were late shot clock. It's just knocking down difficult shot after difficult shot. And for the UConn doesn't have a point guard crowd, get out of my face with that. Tristan Newton is ridiculous. The thing that I worry and wonder about with honestly both of these teams is playing 7 or 8 guys and relying so heavily on 5 sustainable all season long. UConn, even though they only played 7, Coach Hurley used his bench more, getting 30 minutes out of the bench, while for Kansas, Johnny Furphy played 14, but Nick Timberlake only played 2 minutes, and Christian Brown's little brother only played, older brother, right?
Older brother, yeah.
Yeah, I forget that. Parker's older. He only played 2 minutes. So we're only getting 18 minutes out of Kansas's bench on Friday night. So that's something to watch. I mean, obviously, that is usual for Bill Self, so we'll keep our eyes on that. But still, for Kansas, we've been asking this question a lot. The 4 of the 5 starters, man, you feel so good and solid about it. They got to get the shooting guard situation figured out, Andy. And I don't know what it is. You've said this multiple times. Let's say it again. Clearly, the loss of Arterio Morris is huge for this team, because Johnny Furphy isn't fully capable of doing it, although it appears that he is more so capable of doing it right now than Nick Timberlake. Yeah. And in some ways, even El Marco. El Marco obviously has the athletic advantage, but he's young, and he made a couple freshman mistakes. We saw that on Friday night.
Well, Isaac, I want to talk about the many other top 25 teams that fell. UConn falling is not really about UConn as much as it is about Kansas. And there was a lot of other games. In fact, 7 AP top 25 teams fell over the weekend. And what I want to do now is I want to talk about these games from whether we rank the losses like a blip on the radar, something that ultimately is just part of, college basketball. Very few teams go undefeated, versus this is the kind of loss that means this team might be NIT bound. How panicked are we? How concerned are we about these losses? As a reminder, the 7 AP teams that lost this weekend, and Isaac, I'll have you rank them from least concerned to most concerned. We had Purdue fall to Northwestern. We had Marquette fall at Wisconsin. Of course, UConn falling at Kansas. Duke fell at Georgia Tech. Shout out Damon Stoudemire over there. Kentucky fell at home to UNC-Wilmington. First time Wilmington has ever beat a ranked team on the road. Villanova continues to lose to teams from Philadelphia. They lost to Drexel at home. And then Mississippi State fell at home as well to Southern, 274th at KenPom coming into that game. Isaac, talk to me about how you're feeling about these teams.
Here's my order of least concerned to most concerned, Andy. Least is certainly UConn. We just talked about it. I mean, goodness, you're going to Fog Allen. Yeah, that's a loss. Next for me is Marquette. Wisconsin. I mean, 15th in the nation. I haven't, as of right now, done my rankings for next week yet, but curious to see if and where I have Wisconsin. After that would be Purdue. I put them third. Just again, Northwestern is a great team. Second year in a row losing there, but I just saw a couple like things that gave me some pause, like Fletcher Lawyer making some not great decisions, those kind of things. So that's why I bumped them there. And then Duke, I know they've lost back-to-back games, but both of them are true road games at Arkansas. We know what a crazy environment that is. And then this one at Georgia Tech. It's just sometimes you're going to go on the road and lose in conference play. We'll chalk it up to that, although the Yellow Jackets are 120th at Ken Palm. After that, I went Kentucky. I know that it's like, really? Kentucky losing at home after, like, why isn't this lower? UNC-Wilmington is 119th at Ken Palm. They're a decent team. Missing Wagner in this game was Kentucky, and I know Aaron Bradshaw's back, but I mean, he's just getting in. And so I think some of that is circumstantial, although eyebrows raised for sure on Kentucky with that. Then I would go Mississippi State. After that, even though I know Southern is really bad, but with Villanova, that's now 3 losses. And so this one is kind of like straw that broke the camel's back for me. So I would have Villanova most concerned for me. What about you?
Not too different. Start with UConn, of course. I flipped Purdue and Marquette, although I'm really close between the two of those. Certainly Purdue showed some of those concerns that we've seen from them in the past, Lawyer not having a good game. And I think Wisconsin is a better team than Northwestern, but I'm still just a little more confident in Purdue this year. Maybe it's fool's gold because, I know a lot of people are kind of chomping at the bit about Purdue because they felt like they were too highly regarded coming into the year because of that loss to Fairleigh Dickinson. Now they have this loss to Northwestern, but I still feel pretty confident about the Boilermakers. I still feel confident about Marquette as well, and I think it's just me having Marquette third is more about Purdue than it is about Marquette. I have Duke and Kentucky in the same order as well. Duke, it does feel like they're kind of high on here for how many losses they have, but I'm more confident in the talent level that they have than I am for some of the other team. Kentucky, I'm frankly really confident in their talent level as well, but this game, they don't have Wagner. Bradshaw's still coming back. I'm not super panicky about them yet, but we've seen some weird inconsistencies from them already this season, and they're just really reliant on freshmen. While I think they have the potential to be great, like as good as all of these teams that are in front of them, if not better, they still got some warts that they're going to have to figure out. And then for me, I flipped Villanova and Mississippi State, mostly because this is a horrible loss for Mississippi State. I mean, Southern is very, very bad. They lose at home here. Mississippi State's offense really concerns me. They're a great defensive team. But I'm also not going to pretend that I'm like super enthused about where we're at with Villanova right now either. I mean, this is a 3-loss team. They played really well in Atlantis and haven't really played well the rest of the season. And I think we're getting closer and closer to having some more serious talks about Kyle Neptune at this point. But both those teams right now feel like they're kind of teetering on the edge of like top 25 teams that by the end of the year may not be in the big dance. I kind of think they're both in that same spot right now. Isaac, we talked about these teams. We talked about how they lost, but let's get more into it. Duke loses to Damon Stoudemire and Georgia Tech. Kentucky loses to Wilmington. We got a lot of really interesting results over the weekend. Let's focus on those results, what it means for those teams going forward in more detail. After a word from today's sponsor, LinkedIn Jobs. Folks, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster, and they do it for free. It's critically important for the success of your business to have a pool of quality candidates to interview, and thankfully LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to find them. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They have a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, making it the best place to hire, which is easy when you have that many qualified candidates to choose from. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get qualified candidates within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. They even launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even quicker and easier. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Isaac, let's get right into this. 7 AP teams fell. We talked about where we have them in terms of our panic scale on a 1 to 10. How concerned are we with these teams? But let's get a little bit more into these actual matchups. And let's start at the top. Purdue falls at Northwestern. It's 92-88 is the final score. This thing went into overtime. It was a very, very close matchup. Boo Buie was absolutely incredible for the Wildcats, as he often is these last couple of years. Zach Edey, of course, phenomenal for Purdue. Fletcher Loyer had some problems in this game, struggled a little bit. We saw that. Often when Purdue loses, it's not because Zach Edey plays poorly. It's usually because of the players around him, and that was the case here in this one. But what an exciting game between these two teams, happening at the same time as that Kansas UConn game, happening at the same time as the Oregon-Washington Pac-12 football championship. Just a lot of heart-pumping sports going on at the same time. It was an exciting time, and Purdue once again falls to Northwestern on the road.
Dude, like when this game went to overtime, I thought there was no chance Northwestern would hold on and win, or, I guess it was tied at that point. So, take the lead and win, because Zach Edey had fouled out their main two bigs. They're down to their third guy in Preston. Good grief. Like with, I didn't go back and look at the final, but with 3:52 to go, Zach Edey had drawn 15 fouls in this game. And ridiculous. Yeah. And so for Northwestern, and frankly, for Boo Buie to do this, to say, all right, we're going to overtime against Purdue with the reigning National Player of the Year, and we've got our third string center on him, and yet we're still going to win against the number one team in the nation.
Yeah,
that was what impressed me the most, is for Northwestern anyway. But what was like as good as Purdue, their precision in getting this tied to get it to overtime was phenomenal game management from Matt Painter. But what concerned me was then, why isn't Purdue dominating in that same way in overtime that they should have been? That needs to happen. There's no reason. First off, Northwestern should have won in regulation.
Yeah.
But secondly, what? When it got to overtime, Purdue should have run away with it.
Agreed. Want to talk about Marquette and Wisconsin, because I kind of identified this as a sneaky game for Marquette. They're on the road. These are two teams in the same state. They have a bit of a rivalry between each other already. Wisconsin, 15th at Ken Pom, a team that's been getting top 25 votes pretty regularly. But, Marquette, obviously, after their Maui performance, it kind of felt like, hey, this isn't a team that's susceptible to losing to an unranked team. Like, this isn't the kind of thing that's going to happen to Shaka Smart's club. And then they go out and they grab 23 rebounds against Wisconsin. They got out-rebounded by 15 from the Badgers, a big, strong team in Wisconsin. Not the kind of thing that's shocking for Wisconsin to be able to do. They're a good defensive team. They're a good rebounding team, but they hold you to 23 rebounds. They hold you to 7 of 29 shooting from three, 24% from three for Shaka Smart and Wisconsin. Really tough game for them. I do think that Wisconsin deserves a lot of credit here. A team that, again, I'm in the same boat as you, my friend. I have not finished my top 25 rankings as of this recording, but I would be pretty surprised if I don't have Wisconsin in there, or at least knocking on the door. I think Ken Pom has them 15th right now. They're a team that has played very well at times this year. They've also played mystifyingly bad at times this year, but we've seen that from a handful of different teams this year. And Marquette, this is a game that I think it's not going to define their season or anything like that. They're in the Big East. They got plenty of opportunities to pick up more marquee wins against a bunch of quality opponents going forward. And I think the rivalry aspect of this and the true road environment plays a factor. But at the end of the day, Marquette, you can't get out rebounded by 15 and shoot 25% from three and expect to beat just about anybody, and certainly not a team as good as Wisconsin.
Yeah, no way, Andy. Let's go to some of the blue bloodier parts of this thing. Duke, their first two losses you can explain away pretty well, and right, like even on Friday's show, we're like, not real, or whenever it was, not really worried. You lose at home, sure, but it's to Arizona, who is going to be number one. Yeah. You lose at Arkansas in a ridiculous, crazy environment, and then you go to Georgia Tech, and I don't know that this is the one that gives me pause with Duke, right? At this point, like, I get it. It's a true road environment. I get it. It's a conference game, but you just got to think, with all the talent and experience that they have, you go in and win in Atlanta, right? Like, I don't know if I can explain this one away as much, Andy.
No, I'm with you. I shout out David Stoudemire, shout out the Yellow Jackets. Georgia Tech's got a couple of nice wins here in a row. And I think there's some optimism building for what David Stoudemire is doing at Georgia Tech. But at the end of the day, Duke cannot lose this game. I mean, they can't. Is an indictment on their entire season? Are we calling for John Shire's head? No, of course not. We're not at that point. We shouldn't be at that point, especially because those other two losses are more easily explainable, like you said. But again, the more losses you rack up, the more difficult it becomes to explain. And so for Shire, like, while the first two are explainable, Duke shouldn't have three losses. They should not have three losses. They have three losses. That's going to be an issue for them at this point. They're not in danger of, slipping out of the tournament or anything like that, at least not yet. But like, if you're Carolina or if you're Virginia or if you're somebody like that, you got to be feeling like, hey, we got a really good chance of winning the ACC this year, because Duke they're already out here dropping games on the road that teams that win the ACC don't typically lose on the road to Georgia Tech. It hasn't happened a lot in the last 10 years. So this is a rough one for them.
And obviously we'd have to mention that Tyrese Proctor goes out injured early in this game. That certainly plays a factor. I get it. And I know that that's a thing, but even before, even before this, he played 1 minute. I mean, even before this in prior games, he's not quite giving enough for what Duke needs him to be. We expect better and bigger things from the Blue Devils, but we'll keep our eyes on it. Andy, I reckon we ought to keep going to our six-pack. What do you say? Obviously, there's more to be said about Kentucky, Villanova, and Mississippi State losing. But hey, we only got so much time, folks, so we keep on trucking. We've got our weekly six-pack to close out the show. And what better way to start a six-pack than traveling with our guy Andy Patton to Las Vegas, Nevada? But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. It's $150 if your team wins. Maybe you've been thinking about joining FanDuel. Well, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is so easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over, unders, or how about this one, the national championship odds. Let me give you the top 9. Purdue plus 1,000, Arizona plus 1,100, Kansas plus 1,300, UConn, Marquette, and Houston at plus 1,500, and Duke, Creighton, and Tennessee at plus 2,000. So if you'd like to get in on any of that action or any of this NFL action, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to do so. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, folks, six-pack time. 2 games, though, we're going to truncate and bring together. Why? Because Andy was in person to watch both of them in Las Vegas on Saturday night. First, Colorado State over Washington, a great game there. And then in the nightcap, Gonzaga knocking off USC. The Bulldogs have now beaten both LA area Pac-12 teams. Crazy stuff there. Andy, tell us about the first game and what an absolute dude Isaiah Stewart is.
Yeah, Isaiah Stevens, fantastic performance.
Steven, thank you.
Yeah, I got you. Fantastic performance from him. It was kind of a sloppy first half between these two teams, but really, really fun back and forth affair in the second half. Fantastic shot making from Moses Wood at UP, from UP, transferring to UW. Fantastic stuff from him. Mostly in the first half. Second half, Keon Brooks really took over for the Huskies. But Isaiah Stevens, just fantastic stuff from him throughout this contest all game long, exploiting Washington's zone. When Washington went to man, he was able to get some shots off as well. Washington had a real chance to win this one. Paul Mulcahy had a game-tying 3 from the corner, about 15 seconds left. This thing went into the hoop and then out of the hoop. I was shocked that he didn't knock that one down. It was a big, tough loss for Washington, but Colorado State continues to be one of the best mid-major teams in the country, and they earned it with a solid victory here on Saturday. And then an hour later, we got Gonzaga and USC. And if you missed the very start of this game, you turned on the game, you were shocked because Gonzaga just opened up a huge lead immediately. It was 15-2 in the first 4 minutes, I think, of this game between these two teams. And then they basically played even basketball for the entire rest of the game. Gonzaga ends up winning by 13 after going up 15-2. So like I said, even ball for the rest of the game, but Gonzaga's ability to to prevent Isaiah Collier from getting the looks that he wanted to get. Out-rebounded USC throughout the contest. Really good job of crashing the glass, getting a lot of offensive rebounds. I think they had 14 in this one. Just a really good performance. Gonzaga's got 4 fantastic bigs. All of them played well in this one. EK had 14 and 10. Ben Gregg came off the bench, had 14 and 8. Redshirt freshman Braden Huff, I think he had 12 off the bench as well. Gonzaga's got some depth concerns, particularly in the guard room. We'll see how that pairs for them. They got UConn coming up in a couple of weeks. They got San Diego State at the end of the month before they get into the WCC season, but really nice job for Gonzaga to pick up wins over UCLA in Maui, and now USC really kind of taking it to the Pac-12. They got UW next Saturday, so that'll be their 3rd game against the Pac-12 this season, and they are, I think, 15-1 in their last 16 games against the Pac-12. So as the Pac-12 comes to an end, Gonzaga continues their dominance over them over the last couple of years.
Man, really excited to see where I rank Colorado State as we get finished recording. Also, obviously no Bronny yet for USC. They've got like just one game in the next 16 days, so lots of time to get him up to speed. Number 2 in our 6-pack, TCU with a quote-unquote game winner over Georgetown, 84-83 in the Big 12 Big East battle. Emmanuel Miller, phenomenal player for TCU, gets this wild sideline buzzer-beating 3 to, we'll use quotes again, Andy, win at Georgetown. But the problem is he stepped out of bounds just a step or 2 before releasing the ball. The problem, the refs don't catch it in real time, and it's not like you can't go back and review this. I don't know why. What are we doing? Change the rule book, make this happen. You hate it for Georgetown as they're trying under Coach Cooley to get some good momentum, get a good marquee non-con victory here. But TCU does get the win. They stay undefeated on the season.
Hate this for Georgetown. Hate it for Georgetown. Next up on our 6-packs, we're going back to the Pac-12. Oregon, big time win over Michigan. There was a lot of buzzer beaters, game winners, finishers. Again, an incredible weekend of college hoops. This one, Oregon over Michigan, 86-83. Jackson Shelstad, the freshman guard for the Ducks, hits a game-winning 3. And folks, here is the crazy thing about this situation. Jackson Shelstad went to Wesleyan High School in Oregon. He then went to Oregon, and he had a game-winning 3 in his 7th career game against Michigan. Peyton Pritchard, many of you will remember that name. He had a prolific 4-year career at Oregon, now in his 3rd NBA season with the Boston Celtics. Peyton Pritchard also went to Wesleyan High School in the Portland area. He also went to the University of Oregon, and he also, in his 7th career game, hit a game-winning 3-pointer against the Michigan Wolverines. Life is weird sometimes. An incredible coincidence for Shelstad to be able to do exactly what his idol did in the same situation against the same team in the same career number of games. Just a weird, fluky, funny thing. Perhaps if you're an Oregon fan, you're feeling some optimism that Shelstad will have anywhere close to the career that Pritchard did in Eugene, because boy, howdy, he was a fantastic player for that Ducks team.
Yeah, does that mean Oregon's going to the Final Four this year? Wow.
Yeah, right.
So, Andy, we've got 2 Ivy games we want to talk about here. Number 4 in our 6-pack. Yale just lost a basketball game that they led by 5 with 3 seconds left. Wrap your brains around that, people. Quick layup for Vermont's Aaron Deloney. Red Sea is parts, so they don't foul him. Great. Get it. 0.6 of a second left, and Yale is still up by 3 at this point. They commit an offensive foul on the inbounds action. Deloney, so now Vermont ball, Deloney inbounds to the wing to TJ Long, who drains the 3 and is fouled. Makes the free throw. Boom. Vermont wins in miracle fashion. 6 points in the final 3 seconds, 66-65 over a Yale group that is crying all the way back home.
Yeah, we also had LaSalle over Penn, another Ivy League action game here, and overtime action for LaSalle in the A-10 here, and they end up beating Penn with a game-winning 3 in overtime. Khalil Brantley, 2 tough losses for the Ivy League here. Brantley got this ball in. He got just about a step past half court. He was in double coverage, threw it up while 2 guys were on him, banked in the 3. That is ball game for LaSalle. They're now 6-2 on the season. Their only losses are Duke and Temple. Probably not a real contender in the A-10, but wow, they beat a Penn team that Villanova certainly could not beat. So some optimism there perhaps for LaSalle, and again, a tough couple of games there for the Ivy League.
A fun game in the South between Memphis and Ole Miss in Oxford at the home of Ole Miss there. Memphis up 7 at halftime. Rebels come back in the second half. Ole Miss goes 11 of 22 from deep for the game. That's insane. Jalen Murray had 22, including the final 7. So big time win for Ole Miss. Andy, they're still the lowest ranked at KenPom of the final 14 remaining undefeated teams. By the way, big news for them, though, as we said on Friday, Musa Cisse is now eligible. He played in this one, played 15 minutes off the bench. So we'll see how Chris Beard's team does as they get him worked into action.
Well, Isaac, there was so much action this weekend that we really didn't get to. We didn't talk much about that Kentucky loss to Wilmington, didn't talk a ton about Villanova or Mississippi State's loss. We didn't get to Clemson beating Pitt. There is more to be had. We'll talk about a lot of this stuff on Tuesday. We're going to have some fantastic games coming up this week as well with the Jimmy V Classic, some rivalry games, some more conference games coming up later this week. College basketball is never-ending action, and we got all of it covered for you right here on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Again, we are available wherever you get your podcast. You can also join us on the Discord channel. If you want to talk about that Kentucky game, that Clemson game, that Mississippi State game, and you want to talk about it before our Tuesday show comes out, come join us on the Discord channel. It is free. There is a link in the show notes here on audio or video platforms. You can click there, come hang out with us, chat college hoops 24/7. Folks, want to thank all of you for making the show your first listen or your first watch of the day. And until tomorrow, peace.